Are you checking out Obsidian's new RPG, Avowed? Then stick around because this video is going to come in handy. We're going to go over some great beginner's guides and beginner's tips that will get you off to the best start in Avowed. Avowed is a great game so far. I am a decent amount of hours in, and there are a lot of things that I wish I knew at the beginning of the game that'll help me generate more money, help me play better, and help me take down enemies a lot easier, and conserve some of my better assets for later in the game. So if that sounds good and is going to help, subscribe to the channel and stick around for much more Avowed guides. We've got tons of stuff to come, going over secrets, tips, tricks, in-depth details on how you can progress better in the game and get better gear, and where you can find secret items. Now, as with any RPG title, one of the best things to do is just explore and take in the scenery. So coming off of the beaten path, you wander around and find some beautiful things like rare flowers, dead bodies, and other bits that just contain rare items that you'll be able to sell later on, and some stuff may even be better than the current gear that you're carrying. So it's worth taking a minute and exploring the scenery. You'll also come across tons of buildings that are like this, that are completely blocked off. But if you look around, there'll always be another way in. So it's always worth checking out a different route. So as you can see, jumping up on the side there, and then we got a breakable item here. Now there's breakable items everywhere in the game. Once you can hear this sound, this sort of shimmering noise, that means that there's items nearby. So always make sure you check out the boxes. There's boxes like this that are placed around that can be broken into. So just double check that you've not got anything left behind in any of the boxes. Another simple way to gain items other than just exploring is, as you look at your top right on the minimap, you'll be able to see that there are little symbols that show where flowers and plants are located, which gives you an easier way to identify and grab them. Some of these things can be hidden down in little caverns, so it's highly worth just keeping an eye on your minimap at all times, just to make sure you've always got the best chance of getting some of those rare plants and stuff that you will need for upgrading much later on.
Nice to see you again. How can Walter be of assistance?
Now don't forget about the traders in game. These guys are great early on. They'll get you some better weaponry than what you can find originally, but they'll also give you various treasures and items that will help you a lot when it comes to exploration and finding the best gear. So things like treasure maps and pelt, these are things that you're all going to need later down the line, as well as things like lockpicks to help you get some better gear out of chests when you come across them. Also, you'll be able to find things like fine armor. Yes, they cost a lot of money, but if you're doing a decent amount of exploring anyway, you'll be able to sell some good stuff back to them. Now, as it's an RPG, you're going to want to pick up everything that you can find, but with an RPG, that comes with a price. You'll become over-encumbered all the bloody time. Luckily though, with a Avowed system, you won't become over-encumbered all the time. Because as you can see, if you look down at the bottom of the screen there, we've got an 8 for the weight. And then it goes up, down, depending on what we've got. But things like grenades don't actually weigh anything. Armor and chest pieces, they weigh a lot, so they cost a lot. They're going to take a lot to carry these things round, but you don't really find them too often. But then when it comes to things like your boots and gloves, they have no weight. Same when it comes to food, health potions, upgrade materials, and treasures. So it's great. The only thing you really need to worry about picking up too much of is weapons and armor. Everything else you can carry in abundance. Weapons and armor can also be placed at your stash at the parry station if you do like the look of it, but don't have the materials to upgrade it yet and it's not the best currently. You'll be able to upgrade it later by placing it in your stash and keeping hold of all of the upgrade equipment that you'll need. Make sure you also use the Eora waystones to set up camp as often as you come across them. These things are great because you can upgrade your gear, you get full health, you get regenerated stamina, you don't have to buy anything, and you can obviously store a lot of items. That way, when you are storing them, you haven't got to carry the shit around, you're not going to be full of loads of weight, and obviously upgrading items is definitely going to be something you're going to want to do. You don't have to do it right now. You can do this a little bit later down the line when you've got better resources, but you will need to upgrade certain items as you progress through the game, especially if you find items that you really like, because as I've mentioned a bit later on in the video, progressing through a lot of the tiered items go up with the areas that you go to. So a lot of the items that you find in the first area are really irrelevant in that second, unless you're upgrading them. So it's worth setting up a parry station, rejuvenate your health, upgrade your gear, have a chat with your mate and have a snooze. Now when it comes to healing, potions and food, these are all very important in game, but there is a better way to use them than just to go, oh, I need health, let's smack on a healing potion, I need essence, let's smack that on in the middle of a fight. Because you're going to need these things in a lot of the boss fights, and they're not the easiest to come by. You can buy them if you really want, but if you're a little bit like me and like saving all of your money for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and are more financially stable in-game than out-of-game, then it's better to use your food. The food and things like this go over time. So as you use these, a lot of them also have effects like curing poison and bleeding, so it's good to keep one or two. But as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, it will over time start to heal your character. They've also got certain buffs like damage and damage reduction, so use all of these and have a look what you've got before you go straight in to using the health and essence potions. These will also charge over time, as you can see with the little timer there, so they will stack continually whilst you are fighting and continue to upgrade your health and various other items. Another awesome small detail in the game is if you want to have a armor set that looks the same, but you don't like the values of that armor set, just make sure you've got it in your inventory. And as you can see here, we've got the transmogrify, which basically changes the appearance of a certain piece of armor to the armor that you want. So at the moment I'm wearing boots of the bricklayer because I want the carry capacity, but I need the Engwithan greaves to actually match my chest piece, which as you can see there is the blue sort of goldish looking thing, which I really quite like. I like the look of it, looks cool. It's one of the best starting armors that I've found so far, and you get it for pre-order in the game. So it was one of the first things I picked up and started to wear just because I like the look of it. But then having these boots of the bricklayer with that carry capacity doesn't really look the same, doesn't go with the outfit. So transmogrify, and there we go, we've got the same looking armor set with different values. Now when it comes to combat, you're going to want to use a mix of abilities, not just melee or ranged. You can have two separate loadouts on the go at one time, which I think is really, really good. And you can variously include your skills into that as well. When you get to sort of mid-game, you're going to have enough points to sort of vary out your skills. I wouldn't focus too much early game on putting skills into one category, because you'll be able to use two at the same times. So if you're using melee and ranged and you like that combination, then you're going to be putting your skills into those two items. Whereas if you like magic, you're going to want to put your skills into one of those instead of the melee and ranged. Now I'd recommend a decent combination of melee and magic. That seems to be the best, because you can inflict damage over time with magic as well as using grenades, which really help with damage over time, such as poison and burn effects. Using these just give you a little bit more of an edge in combat and also help preserve your stamina. You can see an enemy's got a decent chunk of damage over time, so you can leave them, and most cases when you've got good gear, those will end up dying off. The damage over time is really effective in this game, especially when it comes to burning and poison. Against sort of mid and low level enemies, those things work really well just to finish them off in general. When it comes to bosses, they do help in getting their health down a little bit, but they're not the be all and end all. You will have to go balls deep when it comes to boss fights. Now when it comes to combat, one of the most important things that I've found is stamina. Stamina is an absolute bitch. It drains so quickly. You use it when you use everything. When you use magic, when you use melee, when you use ranged. Every single action involves the use of stamina. Even holding a shield will stop your stamina from regenerating, and if you get hit, your stamina will continue to drop. Now, regeneration of stamina is only done through time. The only way that you can improve that is through various items in-game that you find, such as armor sets. Certain weapons use less stamina, so it's highly recommended you check the stats on all of your items and make sure you've got the best ones. Stamina is not too much of an issue when you're fighting random enemies one by one, but when you come across a big group, you will run out of stamina pretty damn quickly, especially if you've got a boss fight and you've got lots of guys around you. So try and find anything you can to improve your stamina, including skills such as resolve. Put points into things like that, get that stamina up, and try and keep it as high as you can. It will really help you in combat. And lastly, for combat, when it comes to the actual tiers of difficulty in the game, you'll come across enemies that have skulls above the head. Those mean that they are pretty much a bit too high level for you and your gear itself. So if you do find gear that you like, make sure you're upgrading it. And if you've not got certain gear and you just want to play through and get everything that you can and then decide what gear you like towards the end of the game, make sure you're changing your gear when you progress through different areas of the game. When you get through different zones, the combat gets more difficult. Therefore, the weaponry that you did have before beforehand is completely useless. So items that you find in the first area aren't really going to do too well when you go to the next area. So do bear that in mind. As you progress through, the gear will get better. Obviously, that sounds like a really dumb thing, but yeah, the items do get better with the corresponding area. So if you want higher end items, you're not really going to get too much of that at the start unless you're upgrading it. There's not like secret hidden high end best items at the beginning of the game. You do need to progress through to certain tiers, and then the items in that tier will be corresponding with the level of the enemies that are there. You can also use spells to traverse things like water and get across to hidden areas that have valuable loot. So, highly worth getting into these spells. These things are great and provide loads and loads of cool stuff that just expand the gameplay a little bit more than just the combat does. When it comes to exploration and quests, I've already talked about the secrets and just exploring everywhere and anything that you find. But a lot of the quest lines, as I mentioned earlier on, are tied into the certain areas that they're in. You won't really come across many quests that will start you at the beginning of the game and take you all the way to somewhere right at the end. A lot of the areas are tied in to certain areas that you're in. So you do those quests there, you will get the rewards for that corresponding area. So it's definitely worth just keeping around to the first zone, second zone, third zone as you're playing through the game, rather than jumping between one and the other, doing quests, because you'll get a lot of irrelevant gear. If you go obviously to the second zone, grab all the gear there and then come back and finish the first zone, that's going to make things a lot quicker and easier when you come back to do the first. So if that is your playstyle, you can do that. And if you just want to blast through that first zone and complete everything and then move on to the next, you can do that too. Not much of the game ties into each of the areas other than the main storyline, so it's worth completing an area before moving on to the next. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from me. That is my beginner's guide to Avowed. Hopefully it's helped. I do apologise for the lateness of it. I was going to initially do this on the release day, but my kids were ill, then I ended up being ill, so it's been a bit of a pain in the arse. So sorry it's a few days late. Hopefully we'll be back on track now. We'll have another video out on either Sunday or Monday, going over some other little bits and bobs. Maybe we'll do some secrets. Let me know what you want to see next. I've got a ton of stuff ready to go. For now though, I've been Cowboy, you've been awesome, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.